ça va bien.
Yeah, that's
Voilà.
about as good as my French gets, my friend. Welcome to the Museum of Graffiti Artists Talk Live program.
Okay, okay. It was difficult for me, I'm an old guy, and now with the new technology to
I
connect.
don't believe you. You're not an old guy.
Uh,
So, so we're gonna start this talk, and I'm really excited about this because we managed to talk earlier, and your story is so compelling, and the annals and the history of graffiti, and I can't wait to share this with everyone because it's quite unusual and it's very sentimental at points, but it's a
mm,
testament, right, to the artistic spirit, especially the spirit of graffiti here in New York, but also in Parisian graffiti, which has its own history going back even towards the early '60s, if not beyond that. So before I start, let me just type in your name here um, because I want to make sure you are tagged,
yeah,
and I hope I did this right. And the first thing I'm going to do, psychose, and I keep saying psychose.
yeah.
I'm going to turn my camera around so I could just project and read a little bit about you to everyone. Um, okay, let me just set myself up here. Uh, Psychose
Yeah,
is an urban artist who painted on walls as early as 1984. He is a member of the
yeah.
globally recognized graffiti crews 156, MAC, UK, and GT. He made his mark
Yeah.
upon Paris with graffiti, but is also known for his involvement with the collective Les Charbonnaires, forgive
Mm,
my
mm,
French, where
mm.
he practiced street art in a more exploratory manner. Psychose extended his artistic practice in the catacombs below Paris, producing carved sculpture reliefs as a mirror of his work in the streets. For years, he's kept this part of his work secret, and today we're going to excavate this history with everyone. On canvas, he's inspired by the streets, reinterpreting graffiti codes. His signature figurative characters are single, continuous line drawings without faces that are designed like a signature in one shot. Um, and so, Psychose, I want to jump right into this with you because Paris is a very special place for artists and
Yeah,
historically. And one of the things that was quite unusual, um, given that at the turn of the century, so much innovation was happening in Paris on art with young artists, namely the avant-garde. And then there was a period where New York art and culture was taking precedent in the world of art. And then all of a sudden, this culture of graffiti happens. And then all of a sudden, it migrates to Europe, right? It ends up in a place like Paris, where a kid like you discovers it. And and then Paris ultimately is kind of a center at the moment for graffiti, which we will explore. But I want to know, what was it like for you as a kid to embrace this culture? And 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 one of the things, let me just go back to this slide. How, well, let's start at the beginning, because you had mentioned you started writing graffiti because of a girl.
yeah, exactly.
Explain this to us.
Um, uh, I was in love with a girl, and I want to flirt with the girls. And at this time, there is nothing about graffiti in Paris, and
What year are we talking about?
in 85, 84, there is nothing about graffiti in France, just a few things. But there is no internet, no picture, nothing. And in fact, in my book of geography, there is at the end of the book a lesson about New York. And I don't know if hazard, there is a picture of Henry with a train who pass with a big piece on the train, and I was totally absorbed by this picture, and I thought that it was a good idea um, to impress the girl, you know, that I was in love. And in fact, I did a piece without that it was, you know, in the front of the school. And the coincidence is in the school, there is a good friend of Bendo who called Graftou. And this guy was one of the first writer in Paris, you know. And when he saw this piece, the guys was looking for me, you know. And because at this time there is nobody who make graffiti in France, you know, maybe 10 people, not more, you know. And at least the guy found me and explained me different things about the code, you know, that there is a tag, screw, there is traps, there is piece, and I was very fascinated, but the words of the guy, you know, and the 1 week later we stay friends and we chill together, and after he bring me during the weekend because I was I don't know how you said that when you sleep at school, you know, boarding school or something like that.
Boarding school.
Yeah, and during the weekend, the guy gives me a rendezvous to go to the house of Bendo, you know. And I met Bendo. I saw some piece of him on the river, you know, on the border of the river, and I was very impressed. And I think the graffiti absorbed me, you know, and it's like that. In fact, you know, that everything starts, you know.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because Bando has a really interesting history in Paris, but there were other writers, right? You mentioned Scam and Cult.
Yeah, and that was, I think, one of these first crew who called Bomb Squad 2.
Yes.
And it was in the nice neighborhood. There is the Bomb Squad 2 and the Alphabetic Force. And there is Blitz and Bendo and the same neighborhood, and they start a kind of competition between them, and the thing advance. And after on the river, I saw a piece of shoe from Amsterdam, you know, very early, and it was incredible style. As Bendo, as a Colt, as after Mode coming in Paris, in France, you know, it was the beginning of something else with the CTK, you know, the
right.
Time Kings, you know.
But you weren't Psycho yet, right? You were Arco, right? That
yeah, me, my tag at this time was Acro. Voilà, I was not comment dire. Commando military graffiti. I was more peaceful. I was smoking joint, and I did a crew called the Stone Panther with a guy. This name was Spliff, and we was together, and we start something. But it was more peaceful, and but we was very fascinated by this beginning of the story, you know.
So let me ask you something, because you're kind of learning it naively. You're not really aware of what's happening in New York. But what's interesting is that you guys start painting walls when, in fact, you have this incredible subway system. I have the subway map up as the image. And one of the things I always found interesting about Europe and why graffiti made sense in these big cities is because they had a metro system, and they were really easy to paint. So at what point did you decide, wait a minute, or not just you, but the writers in Paris say, wait a minute, there are trains. Kids in New York are painting trains. Why don't we paint trains?
Alors, in fact, we paint trains in the beginning. There is some trains, but we paint in the yard. And in the yard, the trains go directly to the bus, you know, and they don't go out, you know. And at least we stop to paint trains, you know, we prefer to paint walls, you know. But that it was for the first generation. After there is young guys as ONO or VIP and Nasty in the 90s, you know, who have the idea to think that to answer to the traffic at 6 p.m. or the morning, you know, the RATP put train in the middle of the line. And the guys don't go to pen the train at night, but during the day and during the afternoon. And the train was obliged to go out, you know. And it's why it's how the train start to go out, you know. But that it was in 90.
Yeah, that's a very good strategy.
Yeah. And I think, you know, graffiti, step by step, somebody brings something and that's advance, you know. For us in the beginning, the idea is to make everything, you know, street, train, everything, but the train don't go out. And it's why I think a guy prefer to paint walls, you know, in the beginning. You know?
Right, and some of those early writers like J1 and Ash, these
yeah.
were the guys that you were very close to, no?
Yeah. In fact, there is the guy of the center of Paris, very rich neighborhood, and after there is a big terrain vague, empty place, you know, in La Chapelle and Stalingrad, and that was the place of the BBC crew with Jay, Ski, Ash, and I think it's Ash Sao at this time who found the place, you know, and in the beginning it was very big, and there is walls, and by the subway when you pass in the front of, you can see the piece inside, you know, and after some people start to go to paint the walls, but there is not a lot of walls, and the walls was as a private property, you know.
Yeah.
And after it was the beginning for me of the hip hop in Paris. There is not just painting, there is the dance who's coming, the rap, and each weekend there is a big meeting of hip hop in Paris. And for me, it was the beginning of the culture in Paris, because it was something that make a federation, you know, feder, you know, the things.
Yeah.
And after everybody heard about that, even in Germany, in Europe, you know, and people was coming. And after Dynasty, a famous DJ, was coming during the weekend with Platine, with Electrogen group, you know, to bring electricity. And each weekend there is a big party. It was crazy. And for me, it was during 87 and 90, you know, it was the golden age of this place, you know, and the BBC bring a lot for this culture, you know.
And let's go back. I want to talk about and that's the very cool thing about Europe, right? The countries are close together, and you get all this influx of influences. Like you said, Shu came to Paris early.
Yeah.
And so was it, when you kind of really started getting into it, how typical was it that you guys decide, well, instead of saying, let's go to this layup, why don't we go bomb this country, right? Like, why don't we go to Amsterdam and paint? Why don't we go to Berlin and paint? Was that common?
I don't think so. I think France, you know, was the border between with the ocean, you know, Atlantic Ocean, with the America, you know.
Yeah.
There is people who go to New York pass by Paris, you know, and in the same when they go back, you know. And at this time there is not a lot of people, as I tell you, and this place, Stalingrad, was already people heard about that, but even we have not books and things like that. In I don't remember exactly when, but Henri Chalfant is coming in Paris to see the place, you know, and met people and make picture and Spray Canard. There is some picture of Terrain Vague of La Chapelle, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
so when I think about this, right, about the adaptation, right, and how natural the adaptation was for kids in Europe. Um, the one thing that I always found interesting is like a beautiful city like Paris, how what graffiti would do to Paris. And one of the interesting things that you did was that was quite interesting was the the Palisade, right?
Yeah.
Bombing there
Mm.
in such a center and important place of Paris. Tell me about
Yeah.
that. Tell me about these pieces
Yeah,
that we're
it
looking
was
at.
crazy because outside, you know, there is the big museum of the Louvre, you
Yeah.
know, and we arrive there, and they start to dig and build the pyramid, you know, in the center of the Cour Carrée in the Louvre, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and in fact, some people, one day, many people are coming and paint the place, but it was a spontaneity impact, you know. And after, not a lot of people go on the Palisade, and we start to paint at night, but one day I finish very late, you know, and a worker of the place told me, don't be worried. We don't want to catch you, you know, because we need to paint the wood. Because if we, with the rain, if we don't paint the wood, that's become ça pourrit, you
Yeah,
know.
it rots. Yeah.
Yeah, and after I think it was okay to paint the Palisade, you know. And after every day I go to the Palisade to make peace, you know, step by step, close to close, you know. And the people who come to see the museum saw our piece, and they was impressed by our work, you know. And
What was the
it was
what was the museum impressed?
yeah. It was funny, you know, that at this time graffiti have a place as a museum, you know, and people, tourists and things like that, who coming from far to see the Louvre. In fact, saw our piece, you know, in the Palisade, you know.
I'm looking at one of these pieces here, this photograph here, and I'm going to zoom in because this
Mm,
is, I love this picture because you got the
yeah,
Louvre in the back and it says
yeah,
artist
and
urban.
artist urban, yeah, urban artist, and it
Yeah.
was a crew with Scipion, who was a very old timer. You know, he painted in the Stalingrad too. He have this on wall, and Scipion created this crew, and it was a, typical French crew. You know, he want to write just in French, and the name of the crew was Artiste Urbain. And I was in this crew with a guy who called Echo, with uh, there is Eros, there is Irus with Scipion, and there is Poche, you know, who was a famous tagger in 87, 88, you know. And but the idea of this crew was to write just in French, and to show the French touch, you know, of graffiti, you know. Mm.
Nice. You know what? Thank you for sharing that history. I
Mm,
appreciate when writers give roll call
mm,
because that helps us, right, at archive people don't talk about, right?
mm,
Recognize artists that were there in the beginning of the movement.
mm. And I think, you know, in each country, uh, the context and the environment play on the style, you know. In the New York, I think if you have paint, had paint the train, is because there is a so different neighborhood, and you want that your paint go in another neighborhood, and you get the train for that, I think, in the beginning. In France, it was not the opposite, but we was in the rich neighborhood, and you want to touch the real life, you know. And in Germany it was different too. And graffiti grew up around the world, you know, the typical ways, you know, with the culture, you know.
Right.
And in France,
you know what, this brings me to something interesting in your story, right? Because you see, we're talking about how graffiti spreads around the world and how kids, you know, find identity through graffiti. And one of the things that I found fascinating is the idea of freedom of expression, right? I think a lot of us want. And you told me a very interesting little bit of story about your family background, and because you're of Russian, your family's of Russian descent, and they're in their time, right? How that in their goal in their lives to try to push forward freedom of expression in Russia during those periods, that was important. That carried over to you. Tell us a little bit about that.
In fact, my grandfather and my father work a lot to help dissidents in the Gulag, you know. And because I'm coming from an old family, very old Russian family, and I think it's inconscious, you know, it's not conscious, you know, but since I'm born in my family, we speak about freedom of expression. And after it was difficult for me to carry the past of my family, but at the same time, I was looking for my own identity, you know, but I keep this way of freedom of expression and pictorial expression of yourself, in fact. And I start to go in this way, you know, and for me, that's very close, you know. The way for me, graffiti is the symbol of freedom of expression, really, because sometimes that can be subversive, sometimes that can be vandal, sometimes that can be very aesthetic, sometimes it's art, you know, and in fact, it's a part of themselves, you know, the earth, ourselves, you know. Sorry,
yeah, absolutely. And how we find that one of the things that's interesting in how we find it, and as we're looking at one of your pieces, you have really two pieces here, right? You have your Psy1 piece, right, in wild style, but also you have your continuous line figure, right? And that's a different idea of tag, right? That gives you a different kind of freedom of expression outside of a name, where it's a face with no name. There's an anonymity to that. Which I find really interesting, and we'll show more of that. But I also want to talk about this idea of style, right? At a certain point, because we like talking about style. Style writers like talking about style, right? And whether it's hand style, throw ups, or wild style pieces, and you gravitated to the wild style pieces a lot, it seems. Why is that?
For me, styles, you don't really decide to make a style. The style is coming, it's you, you know. When you looking to make something is not very good. When you do something, it's good, you know. And for me, graffiti, since the beginning, was a pictorial expression of myself, you know. It's the same when you sign your ID, you know, that you write is you, in fact, you know. And after, I think when we paint in the street, there is a context, there is a third element. It's not just the canvas and you, it's the place that you are, the emotion around, and sometimes that can be very tough, sometimes that can be a wild style, sometimes that can be a very comment dire, clean, and it depends of the moment, the emergency, and that the way that you are, I think.
Sure. Sure. Let me ask you this, right? We're looking at the van. It has a piece and it has one of your figures. In terms of is there a personality difference when you apply one or the other, right? That there is for you, it's like you're switching character, so to speak.
Alors, for me, the letters, it's a way, the characters in another way, but they are very close, me, when I paint, I'm looking for the dynamic, and when I make my characters, there is no letters, but it's the same of tags, before I make the characters, I don't know how it will be, I just know that in my head that I go make a characters. And it's when you make tags, with letter, you know that you go write your name, but in fact, at least you don't care about your name, it's not a ego trip, it's just the style, it's just the movement, it's just the dynamic, and it's something spontaneity, it's
sure.
And for the ignorant people, they just see ego trip because they just read the name, but in fact, I don't care about the name, I like the style, that's all.
So one fascinating thing about what you said, especially about the dynamics of the name and the signature, I want to talk very briefly about a good friend of yours and ours who expatriated to Paris in the 90s, John Wan, because he's a friend and a collaborator of yours. He uses his name very dynamically to get up. And he had a huge impact on Paris. Tell us about his coming to Paris in those early years.
And alors, John Bendo go sometimes because this father was in New York and his mother was in Paris, and always he go in New York, and I think Bendo crossed John and they become friends, and I think John was looking for art, and he knows that Paris was a capital of art. Hold
that thought for a second. Hold that thought, because that's important, right? That he was looking. You said he's looking for art, right? And what's really interesting in this slide, we have one of his trains, and that's not your typical graffiti piece, right? That's very expressionistic. Totally. It's fast. He's already thinking about art at this point on trains, beyond trains. So please, guys, tell us more.
John, I think, is coming in France to create a artistic movement, and not just to make graffiti, And I think when he saw a picture of Bendo, he was very impressed by the quality of our wall, And after, when he arrived in France in 87, he stayed in my house during the summer, and we was very close. And after, he started to paint and make canvas, because graffiti is very ephemeral in the street. And at least there is nothing, just a good remind, and he started to make canvas and start to go more far and try to meet people. And it was very difficult because at this time, graffiti was just young things of, it was just for people, just vandalism, and not comment dire, adolescent crisis, something like that, and after we want to make something with graffiti, and there is different factor, who we want to go more far, and we need to invent each possibility to go more far, open place, because we can't rent, we have no money at this time. We can't rent place or studio, and we open place, empty place as squat, to make a studio, and after everybody work together to make people, to make collectioner, to
I have a question for you.
I think we grew up with graffiti,
Yeah, I have a question for you, right? Because there's not every graffiti writer understands art outside of the context of graffiti. You happen to be in Paris, the art capital, one of the art capitals of the world, with these museums and galleries everywhere. Were you guys spending any time in these museums and looking at art, historical art or contemporary art?
Yes, I don't know for the other people, but me, when I was kids, there is no TV in my house, in my home, and I was close to the Louvre, and my father bring me many times to the museum, and my uncle was painter. I don't know him because he's dead before I born, but when I was very young, I go to the house of my grandparents, and I sleep in the bedroom of my uncle, and I saw many canvas, many sketchbook, and I was very interested by art, since the beginning, before I know the graffiti. And when I was 14, and I met graffiti in the street, and I saw that, I think it's the thing for me, I want to make art, I want to share with my next, I want to meet people, I want to exist, I want to, and graffiti, it's my life, that's all.
You know what I like is that I could feel your love and your energy, your smile when you talk about that, right? As a young kid,
Yeah.
And how important that was for you, right?
Sure.
To have a name, right? And
Yeah,
of course,
sure.
you decide, to make a name in all areas, especially underground, in the subway tunnels. But I want to go a little deeper with you about this, right? Because you have a fascinating story. And here we see you underground with one of your first tags from 1986. And I bet you it's still there.
Yeah.
It is.
That's
That's fantastic.
There is some hide place in Paris who keep the past, but it's very rare today, most rare, and but some place keep some things, I know some place under Paris that there is one of the first piece of Bendo, still today, but nobody knows where is it, and maybe in the 100 years, somebody know where is it and make something about,
Yeah.
And I love the idea that there is place like that with no time that keep the comment dire,
it preserves history, and what we're looking at now, this video of you painting inside the catacombs, right? So now not only do you go underground, you go underground, right? Which is fascinating. And when you did this, when you started going to the catacombs and exploring it, when I first found out, I was really fascinated as to the history of the underground Paris. Tell me how you discovered the catacombs, and it kind of became your studio in a way, didn't it?
In fact, I start to go in the catacombs before make graffiti, at this time, I want to know really well my city, and I loved the place where people don't go, And I start by the rooftop, after I go in the works, and after I heard that under Paris there is a huge network, and I was very fascinated to go there, And one day I met a friend who told me, I know a place where there is big party and I can bring you. And I was very young. I was 13 years old, and I've been with him. But my parents was very upset by that. And after during 1 year and a half, I go in the south of France in a border school because my parents don't was so upset, you know. And when I coming back, you know, I have been in the place, but I don't found the place where there is the party, and I want to go more far, you know. And at this time, I start graffiti, and my partners in crime, you know, Stick, his brother, his big brother, knows a little bit of catacombs, and bring us one day in the catacombs. And at this time, I have a spray can, and with the spray can, I make arrows, you know, like the Petit Poucet, you know,
Yeah.
and step by step, you know. I write my way, you know, and after I try to coming back, and because at this time there is no map, you know,
No map,
and
and we're looking at a map, right? That
yeah, yeah.
you worked on. You
Since this time, there is many people who work to create map, you know. But when I start to go in the catacombs, there is no map, and it was very crazy to go in a network of 69 kilometers, you know,
What were
without
the
map, you
conditions
know.
there? Tell us about what it's like down there. Tell
But
us about the conditions. Tell
it's
us about what did you find down there when you, because there are obviously bones and skeletons. Did that scare you?
Yeah,
It's
no,
dark,
no.
dirty.
That I demystify the death, you know. Uh, it's kind of piece of wood, but in fact, there is a kind of motivation to go in the real dark, you know. When you go there, there is nothing, no sound, no light, nothing. And that you found is that you bring. If you have bad emotion and stress, it's very stress. It's you come in the happy days to make parties. It's very funny, you know. And in fact, it's the mirror of yourself, you know. And that I love in this place is everybody is totally naked. There is nobody is better than another guy, you know.
Yeah.
It's just the human beings and that's all, you know. There is no blah blah blah, you know, because we are
It
not in our dimension, you know.
right, and I appreciate how resolved you are about death, right?
Yeah,
Because look at the pile of bones
yeah,
around you, and there must
mm,
be thousands of skulls and bones down there.
mm. Yeah.
And
For me, it's beautiful, you know. When I see that, it's not wrong things or you know, it's not bad or you know, it's beautiful, you know. It's a piece of the past. It's very close, and that's crazy to be there. And sometimes we can make a dinner on bones, you know, and the contrast of your life alive and the past, just magical, you know.
yeah, yeah. There's something that I find really magical in this picture, and I love this picture for several reasons. One, it's clearly, you know, all the carving. Somebody put a lot of effort
Yeah.
into carving that, right? But then
Mm.
there's your light drawing of your continuous line figure, which is almost like a spirit dancing in this space, right? It's beautiful. One, because
It is.
it's it's ethereal, not it's ephemeral and ethereal. But the other thing is that's interesting is that it's non-destructive, right? And you
Yeah,
mentioned something to me
exactly.
before about changing from spray painting
Mm.
to doing the light drawings. Tell me about the importance of the light drawings.
Alors, in fact, in the catacombs, there is a big fracture between people from the patrimony and the Apaches, you know. And there is many people who don't like painting and things like that, you know. and they want to keep the place as before. And I can understand that, you know. On the highway, there is many, a lot of painting. That's okay, and there is a place very far, or there is no tags and nothing. And I can understand that the people don't want that. And step by step, I think it will be interesting to make light painting with my character who passed by a place, and it was just a moment, you know, an instantaneous of people who pass by as a shadow, you know, and I like make picture in this kind of place. There on the picture, I paint all the ceiling, you know, with my characters, and after we make the picture with that light, and it's the light of the light painting, you know, the who bring the light for the ceiling, you know. And I love
this
this
is fantastic because
yes, it's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, this picture is fantastic because you, in the way it's taken, you've given this figure and light movement as it's approaching you, right? It looks like it's approaching you and walking towards you. It's
just attitude and testimonial of people who pass by, you know.
Yeah, and here in this picture, let me see if I could get this focused. Let me just turn this. I'm super fascinated because we could see arrows. It's almost like a primitive space.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. In the subway where there is a lot of tags, you know, not without reflection, you know. And for me, that's bring me a lot of idea for my painting, you know, for my canvases, you know. I love when the arrows are coming to the corner and in different direction, different ways. And I think it's funny because each people have this own way, you know. And this picture particularly, you know, I work on with a great photographer we call Louis-Adrien Leblé, and we make a kind of montage, you know, of two pictures to make just one. And there is many light painting, you know, to make as a canvas. And that was for me already we work on this picture together, but after I love so this picture that I make a big huge canvas about that by 3 meters of high by 6 of large, you know, and to reproduce this ambience, you know, because we change the color. We there is a real work about the picture, about the place, and that is two parts under Val de Grâce, but they are not exactly like that. You know, the pillar in the middle hide the junction of the two pictures. You know, but it's the same neighborhood. But the idea is to show the place when you can stay, and the cross when you can go, and the catacombs, and my characters who are as an attitude. Voilà.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And here we have your piece in the background, and I guess two guys just hanging out on top of bones.
Yeah, and this place is where in the past people threw the bones from the cemetery outside to bring bones in the under, you know. And since a very, very long time, people are coming in this little round room, you know, and now there is many graffiti on the all walls, you know, and with the bones, you know, and the contrast between the both, you know, it's just amazing, you know. And,
it really is. It's really fascinating because you're communicating with history. You're directly communicating with history of not just of the city, of many, many souls. One of the things that I like about your story too is that you said to me, my materials are the city of Paris.
Yeah.
That's such a profound thing to say about your city because it's so true, right? And here we see you carving in the catacomb, right? Let's talk about the carvings and how you got into carving. You found this space that you needed to apply yourself differently.
Alors, in the beginning, you know, when I started carving in the catacombs, it was because cops was in the front of the entrance and we can go out, and we wait during many hours, and I get LSD this night, you know, and when I was waiting, you know, with the shadow of the candle on the rocks, you know, I have a kind of hallucination, and I saw a face and visage, you know, and I start with my knife to carve and to keep the face. And step by step, you know, I go more far. And one day I had a friend who go in jail in Thailand, and he stayed during long time. And I start to carve in this room, but it's why I buy tools, you know, to carve really, because with a knife you can just make a little things, you know. And when I have tools, you know, I thought, in fact, graffiti is not the spray can, you know. The spray can is just a medium, you know. And I thought graffiti is the approach, you know. And it's to bring something somewhere and impressive and surprendre. I don't know exactly the words in English, you know, but it's to be in your city, you know. And when I start to carve, I think, you know, my materials is the city, you know, and that's nobody can buy it and keep it, and you know, that stay for the city. It's a gift, you know, for the city. And for me, it's the real way of the graffiti, because when you make art in the city, it's kind of gift, you know, for somebody else and the city too.
And there's something about taking that approach with carving that gives it potentially a longer life than a spray painted tag or a marker tag.
Sure. And I dream that piece like that, or not that, because that it was during a show in Agnes B in Paris, and I reproduced the catacombs, and she gave me a big stone, and during all the show, the exhibit, I carved the stone.
What was the rat in the show?
Yes. I have a friend who have rats, because many people have little rats in the catacombs, and I bring that, and it was like that.
Let's talk about this carving, this sculpture, because I feel like I see a letter, I see a wild style there. I see a P, and then
PSY,
PS, I do, and but also it seems like something primitive, something indigenous as well.
Yeah. It's a beginning, But you know, for me it was a challenge, you know, to make letters in stone, because the stone is so you have it's so long, you know, to create a sculpture in stone that you can't see your work, in fact. And it's the opposite of the graffiti, who are very fast, you know. And for me, it was a big challenge, you know, to make a letter with a dynamic, you know, on the walls, you know. And there is few years ago, I make a big letters on the wall in the catacombs, kind of bas-relief, you know. And I'm very glad to did it, and I hope that this piece survive me, you know. And it's and the idea is to let it trust, you know.
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying about the work outliving you. There was one. It's very interesting for me when I was younger, and I would visit Henry Chalfant's studio, and he was a stone carver.
Mm.
He was a sculptor in stone, and I would look at his work and think like, well, this kind of looks like graffiti,
I, he
but
don't, he don't tell me that. Is why he want to go in the catacombs and see my sculpture, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But you said something else important, right? About process, right? The immediacy. And one thing about sculpture, it's not really, it's not, depends on your process. It's not, carving is definitely not immediate. And that's, I think that's why I chose metal, because I said, you know what, as a graffiti writer, I can work as fast as doing a piece
Mm.
and make it and leave. But stone, that material, it's not forgiving.
Yeah.
It's not forgiving. You chop something off, it's off, unless you want to glue
Mm.
it back. But it's fascinating because, again, this process that you found about getting your impressions up, right? At this point, it's almost like not about your name. There's an impression or whatever it is. These
Mm.
figures,
It's the
these
people in the catacombs, you know, the
yes,
testimony. You know.
yes. And we
And
talked about. I asked you whether it was a ritual, and you said no. This is not about rituals.
mm,
Most people would, say that. Is that a ritual? And you said no. We just go and it's kind of like, hey, we go get up, we go bombing.
mm, mm.
Uh,
As for
John's joined us. What's up, John? Speaking of. And so when we think about this, right, when you think about your relationship with the catacombs, life and death, and your experience as an artist, not just above ground, but below ground. When you
mm,
reflect, how many years now? 25 years did you working in a catacomb?
more.
More.
The first time that I've been, it was in 83, you know, and 82, 83, I think, you know, and I start really to go in uh, each week in 86, you know, and since 86, I go very, very often.
Is
Less now, you know,
yeah,
because I'm become a little old and it's very physical, you know,
sure.
but I still to go, you know, and I have a new project because I'm coming back from Egypt. I saw the King's Valley, you know, and I
Ooh.
want to reproduce a tomb in the catacombs, you know. I want to make something like that, you know. It's my new project, you know.
Has anyone else had this kind of relationship and with the catacombs, artistic relationship and long-term relationship with it?
Yes, it's part of me, catacombs, you know. It's more intimistic than in the street, you know, because everything is true. There is nothing to disturb the authentic things, you know. And uh, when I go there, it's stupid that I go to tell you is when something that I go back in the belly of my mother, you know. It's
Mm,
something more intimistic, more. I'm very. There is no time. You create your own rhythm. You know, you create everything yeah, that you see is that you show with your light. You know, is the everything is very close of your emotion. It's that you are, in fact, you know. And I thought in the beginning, when I was young, I just want to test my limit and to know me, you know. But in fact, I grew up with that. As graffiti, and each decade is different, you know. And I found a new idea to go there to make, you know, in the beginning it was to test my limit, after to make party, after no, after to make meet people, to make party, after to build room, after to have a transmission with the new generation. Uh, uh, in fact,
but
I live
but
my life,
yeah,
you know.
I want you to pause on that, what you just said, transmission to a new generation. But also there is again, I'm fascinated by this because it's also a transmission to history, right? Because this painting that you did down there, which is really cool because it's a tribute to like the Great Wave, right? That Hakusai made.
That there is a real story about that, because in fact in the beginning it's not me that who did that. This place is very famous in the catacombs. They call that the beach, you know, because on the floor there is sand, you know. And in 84 there is one of the first crew of cataphile, people who go in the catacombs, who start to make painting and take care of the place, you know, and where there is sand on the floor, and they decide to make the waves and they call the place the beach. And after many years, you know, there is writers who come and make a big drops on, you know. And me, I think it's so stupid, you know. If you wash if you paint on the waves, you know, why you call the room the beach, you know? Because in the beach there is the waves and the sound, you know. And I reproduce the waves, you know. And after there is some people who make paint tags on, and after I fix the things, and after I create a crew called Guardian of Temple, and now it's there is a kind of a transmission for the new generation, and people now clean the waves when somebody paint on, you know. And I think now it will be the name of this place will be forever, you know. And when I will not go in the catacombs anymore, but there is some people who go fix the place, you know. And I think it's very interesting, because we are just not passant. We create under a culture, you know, because it's the time we create the culture, and it's the transmission of the story and voilà.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that's what I appreciate about this conversation with you. You know, like I feel like, and everyone should learn something from this, that you became a purposeful artist, right? That you found life and family and friends through art in places where you don't normally find them, and where people don't go to find people. And this idea that art was driving this for you, right? In a city of art, right? In a city that probably didn't see you as an artist, so to speak. And that you do all of this, right? And it's fascinating to me that we have this history of yours, but then the next part of your story is equally interesting, is that you say, okay, well, outside of purpose, I have to do something with this. I have to show in galleries. I have to go into the studio, right? And that's a big decision to make. And so I want to explore that with you, because the one thing that I've learned is about graffiti writers. Not every graffiti writer can translate their work into studio and be comfortable with it. Who knows if it's good or not? Doesn't matter. It's about being comfortable with that same energy that you had when you were in the catacombs, when you were writing on the trains and on the walls. Tell me about this. Tell me about your experience as a studio artist.
For me, it's just logical, you know. It's just normal, you know. It's just the prolongation of my work in the street. Maybe the street is kind of school of my artist life, you know. As I tell you, now I become not old, but life passed, and I want to let something, you know. And we spoke before about transmission, you know, and for me it's very important, you know, to be involved in the art, because in the city, okay, it's when you paint in the city is a testimonial of the life, you know, because the life change and everything advance, and I think the ephemeral way in the graffiti is very important too, you know, because the things are not just that move, you know, that move. And by side, you know, life
You could say it in
comment dire,
French.
la vie te rattrape, you know, catch you, the life catch you, you know, and you need to respond to that, and you need to have adaptation of that you did before, and uh, in fact, for me, just a prolongation of my life, you know, and it's normal to earn your life to uh, after you have family, kids, and
Yeah.
me, I don't want to make something that I don't like because after my life will be a nightmare, you know. And I prefer to make something that I love. And after, you know, I try to work on the canvas and I start to go more far, you know. It's a lot of works and it's not easy to go to the studio to every day, you know. It's you need to be brave, you know, because and for me it's very close from the street, because if I just go in the studio, I become a monk, you know. And for me it's important to make something in the street and something on canvas, and it's not antinomic, you know. The both are together, you know, and the energy that I get in the street bring the energy in the studio, you know, and
Yeah.
my idea in the studio.
Right.
Voilà,
And what's interesting, right, as we're looking at this painting and you're saying that, right, you, that energy, right, you capture that energy on a canvas, on a square canvas, and then it lives, it has its own life once it's, you know, in a gallery space.
yeah.
There's a formality, right, that we buy
Mm,
into,
mm,
that captures a little bit of that, right? And you know, the thing that's important here is that when I think when writers like you, people who are of our age and that have done so much work, and you know, have some writers, they give up on their graffiti and then say, okay, that's enough of my creativity. I can't I can't extend it, right? And
yeah.
that the business of it, right? The business of being an artist is a difficult one, no matter where you
Mm,
are. It's
mm,
not
mm,
easy. It's not easy psychologically to get up and go to the studio and be satisfied
mm,
with always being in the studio without having to do something in the
mm,
street, as you said, right? Your connection. You want your connection. And what's interesting in the works that you shared with me is that yes, you have this kind of this balance, right? The galleries, the studio, but in your works, the child, the child
mm.
is still there. You could see this in the trains, in the graffiti, the background, right?
True.
That's
Correct.
you
Correct.
right,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that keeps us honest, doesn't it?
Mm, that's true. That's correct. I try to tell the story to when we was young, and we go that in fact this train is very old train when I was kids, you know. There is no train like that today, you know. And I make a mix is the magic of the art, that you make a piece of the past, a piece of something new, so you make a mix. And is the my city too. And I you know, and in my work, I'm very cyclic, you know. Sometimes I make something narrative and oniric, you know, and sometimes I make something as a tag, sometimes I make something very powerful. Uh, my work, the wire in my work is my characters, you know, but I try to test different medium, different kind of paint. Uh, each day is an exercise, you know.
Yeah,
I learn every day in my life, you know, and till my death, you know, I'm sure of that, you know.
yeah,
And for me, the painting is, uh, I don't try to do, I do, you know.
sure.
Everything is logical. Is uh, there is no white page.
Right. But
When I
there's an
go to the
extension,
studio,
right?
I work,
Right. And I'm glad you say that because there's a clear connection. There's a vein that runs through all of this, right? Like for instance, this photograph of you
Mm,
painting trackside. And this is
yeah,
one of your paintings,
voilà,
right? And
exactly,
it's transmitting, as you say, that
exactly,
experience,
voilà. It is
right?
the beginning that start by the subway and after that finish on the canvas, and it's to share for the people who love this kind of way and this moment, when you see the ambient of this canvas, there is no sound, it's quiet, it's how we do that, and I want to share that too, and not just the result. The result is there, but the moment when you do that is very important too.
Right. And you know what's interesting is that while people, outsiders, let's just say people who don't understand the culture and people who may collect us, I think sometimes they romanticize
Mm.
what this life is, right? And that's why I'm glad you kind of explained a lot of these these things to us about your experience, right? And the challenges and the risks that you're willing to take to be an artist. That is not just the studio. I mean, you are willing to risk your life not just on the train tracks, but deep inside catacombs where you could have gotten lost, suffocated, and not found. I just found as another pair of
It's
bones.
that I love, it's my own way, and if I not this kind of stimulation and the kind of risk, there is no payment, I love. It's the spicy of my life, to get risk and go more far and my big inquietude, worry, it's the health,
Yeah.
because when I will be too old, I'm very scared to when I start to feel that in the catacombs, when I go today in the catacombs, I need one day to have a rest, because it's very physical. When I was young, sometimes during 3 nights I don't sleep. I go, I run, I
So
paint.
this, so
You know.
does that experience bring you a little bit closer to mortality, where before maybe you didn't think about it, but now at your age
Mm-mm.
and your health concerns, is mortality a concern of yours?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's sure, the thing change, in my head that don't change, because I still to have a project for the future,
Yeah.
but I found and I try to find adaptation, uh,
You know what's interesting now that you say that, is that um, in terms of adaptation to your environments, the idea of mortality, it doesn't really show up in the work. That you would think that, uh, I mean, outside of that skull with your piece in it, but that mortality didn't become the subject. The experience became the subject.
mm,
The journey became the subject.
maybe step by step, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
because we're not seeing like you putting bones together to make sculptures or paint them or anything like that. Yeah, it's that's an interesting observation for me about you.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
So listen, I want to thank you on behalf of the Museum of Graffiti, all of us here who are fans and support your work, all of
Mm,
those who are joining us, John and others,
thank
and
you.
Les out of Paris. I want to say that this was really
You
wonderful,
know,
man.
I just want to say I have an old friend who called Echo, and before he told every time we are just one big family, and we are just the mirror of each other, and me in my studio, the building where I am, there is John, there is Latlas, Tonk, a lot of artists, and we are very close. And this energy that we share together help us to go more far, And my dream is uh, to give to all the society, and the graffiti culture survive, and not just the street art and the business and the money. You
Oh,
know?
oh, absolutely. It's a balance, but it's good that you
Yeah,
have that crew, right? It's good to have the sense of community.
it's
It's
very
something
important.
I miss that a lot. I always fantasized that I would do that out in Europe. It is important for not just for the work, but I think for the culture, right? That we grow old together, and
Yeah, sure.
and this is a
And
testimony.
when I met you in Musée Pera in Istanbul, you know, and I saw you work, you know, I was very impressed, you know, and all the way you do, you know, since the beginning when you pen train and now, and when we was in the street and you start to make your little sculpture and put in the street, it was so crazy for me, and
Yeah,
we are
but that
very close, everybody.
you know that's what I love about moments like that with the community, right? When we find ourselves in the world, we have a common language, right?
Yeah, sure.
And not yeah, it's somewhat of a speaking language too, the slang and all that, but also creative and the experience that we've lived through this culture.
Hmm.
And that's the glue that binds us. Not all of us, but a lot of us. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad you mentioned that because that was a great memory for me. That was a great
Mm.
time,
Yeah,
special time.
sure,
So
sure.
I want to thank you again for your time and
Me
thank
too,
everybody who
me too.
joined us.
Okay.
Merci and merci.
Mm.
And we'll catch up on the
Say
other
hello
side.
to Alan. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Take
Have a
care.
good night. Thank you.